Hello and welcome back to another episode of Startup Stuff Explained, the show where I explain startup stuff. And the startup stuff I want to explain today is the seed stage. So what's the seed stage all about? Well, it's the stage in your startup journey, typically after you've had the idea and you've done a little early testing. Maybe you've even found a co-founder or co-founders and you started to develop an MVP, a minimum viable product. You get to the stage, typically anything from 6 months to a year in, where you're thinking, we need to raise some money. Maybe you've quit your job, maybe you've run out of your savings that you've been bootstrapping the company with already. So this is typically the first stage where you go and raise external funding. It's known as the seed stage. And that is corresponded to the seed stage investment. Now, what investors will we look at to invest in a seed stage company? It's pretty early, it might have some traction, but you probably haven't sold the product yet or have many customers. You might have customers, but they might be free customers. So who in their right mind would invest in a seed stage company? There are 5 typical areas that you can get this investment from. The first one is the people around you that are closest to you, friends and family. These are typically the kind of people who might throw in $5,000, $10,000, maybe even less, maybe more. Maybe you have a rich uncle or auntie, grandparent, parent, if you're lucky, who might seed your company at the seed stage. And typically these investments are quite small, so the total amount you'd raise is literally anything from $10,000 to $150,000. So you might be able to get that money from some friends and family. This area is also known as the FFF, friends, family, and fools, because typically they're the first people to go in with the money and your company is most likely at a very early phase. There's not a lot proven, so it's a very risky investment to make. So it's usually made by friends and family and sometimes fools who love you and just believe in you. Maybe not so much the product. They believe that you can take the product. The second one is soft funding and grant funding. A lot of governments and countries around the world actually have initiatives and schemes which are used to incentivize the early stage seed growth in companies, because there are a lot of companies at this stage, right, trying to find early investment. A lot of them don't find it, they don't go anywhere. But the ones that do tend to go to the next stage. No guarantee. So the government tries to get them to the next phase because they're going to increase jobs, employ people. So in Norway, for example, we have Innovation Norway, which is an early stage seed investment scheme that you can apply to and actually get up to 50 or 70,000 euros from the government for free. It's grant funding. It's there to sort of stimulate business growth. So actually there's a smart thing you can do to look into different areas in your country, in your city, in your industry that might be soft funding because it's free money, grant funding available to you. There's also grant funding, which is match funding. So you maybe raise $50,000 from your family, friends, and hopefully not too many fools. You can get that matched by some soft funding agency. In the UK, they have 2 schemes called EIS and SEIS, which are there to incentivize private individuals to invest in your company because they get a tax relief from it. So they're actually incentivized to try to foster early stage seed investments in that country. Number 3, angel investors. I'm sure you've heard this one before. These famous angel investors. Now, they're not angels, but they're basically just private individuals who are interested in investing in startups. Some of them might be entrepreneurs themselves that are investing into the next wave of entrepreneurs. Some of them might just be doctors and lawyers and accountants who have a spare $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year that they want to invest in some fledgling companies that they really believe in. So these are angel investors. They can also be very high net worth, wealthy people who invest millions of dollars a year in lots of different companies, like Jason Calacanis. He's one of the initial founders in Uber and Facebook. Those are called super angels. You can find angel investors by looking on, for example, in Europe, EBAN.org, I think it is. That's the European Business Angel Network. And you can find these individuals. They have local events, they have local chapters in different cities around Europe and also around the world. And they'll invite startups and founders to pitch them on a regular basis because they want to find exciting new companies to invest in. So that's the third one, angel investors investing in your company. And these angel investors will typically and only invest at the seed stage because they don't have huge amounts of money, but they can typically cover 10, 20, 30% of a small investment round in the seed stage, which might be anything from $10,000 to $30,000, $40,000 for them, and they want to make a few of those investments a year. So that's why they tend to not invest later than this and not earlier than this, because at that seed stage, you hopefully have got some proven traction and your company's actually got something to show for what you're planning to do. One thing to remember about angel investors investing at the seed stage is they often invest as a group. It's called a syndicate. So a collective of individuals who will each put in 50 or 5 or 10 or how much thousands each to make up the full round. So the more you meet, the more chance you have of pulling more together. So try to get out there and be active to try and find angel investors. Number 4, early stage venture funds or micro VCs. There are, of course, some early stage venture capital funds that actually invest as early as the seed stage, but typically venture capital funds come a little bit later. They tend to invest when there's a little bit more to show for it, and they typically invest more money. So early stage VCs do exist. I'll put a link below to a list of venture capital firms that I know that I think will be valuable to you to find and hopefully raise some money from. In addition to these early stage venture capital funds, there's a new trend in micro VCs. Now, these are typically high net worth individuals who have anything from 1 million to 2 million to play with, or they're just super angel investors. Now, super angels are angel investors that are investing full time. Now, sometimes they don't always have all the money they need to invest, and they get a lot of really exciting deal flow and investments and companies that they meet, they want to invest in. So they raise money from other people, but small amounts of money. Number 5, crowdfunding, both equity and product crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding, where investors will invest in you. So for example, you're asking for $100,000, right? Now you could raise that from one investor, an angel, for example, a super angel, maybe a micro VC or some early stage fund. Or you could raise that from 100 individuals, each investing 1,000. And you'll typically do that because it's going to be hard to meet 100 individuals all investing 1,000. They're uneducated investors typically. So you go on an equity crowdfunding platform such as Crowdcube or Seeders, and you can find these investors there who all want to invest 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 each in individual companies. So they don't have huge amounts of money to invest, but they want to invest in qualified companies to learn from that journey too. But they typically won't have as much of an active role at that stage then. The other side is product crowdfunding. And this is when you go on platforms like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, where say you have a hardware product or some product that you want to actually build and create, it's a tangible product, you can go on there, make a really cool video, and you can basically pre-sell your product. That's kind of what crowdfunding in the product crowdfunding space is. It's pre-sales to your product because you get that money in for the product that you're going to try and build in the next, say, 1, 2, 3 months and then deliver after that. And then you get the money and then you go build it. So you kind of get basically prepaid to build the product. That's another way of crowdfunding. In that case, and there's no equity or there's no shares that you give to any of those people, they're actually just customers. But it's a good way to prove that your product is needed in the market and test if there's actually appetite for it. You know, there's actually a 6th one on the list, which is often overlooked, and it's accelerators and incubators, which can often be perfectly timed for the seed stage startup, because an accelerator is basically a accelerated startup school. It's a 3 to 6 month program where you go in with your company and yourself and your co-founder or how many you are, and they help you along improving your product, improving your marketing, sales, and introducing you to investors maybe actually. And what they typically do is invest in your company. They'll typically invest $50,000 to $150,000. That's the traditional model for anything from 5 to 10% of your company, a set equity stake. But the best part of that seed stage investment through an accelerator is that they give you lots of mentorship, they connect you with angel investors, maybe even venture capital funds. So don't overlook the accelerator. Find out if there's one for your industry and your product that might be beneficial to you, because some of them are also kind of seen as like the Harvard of accelerators, such as Y Combinator in San Francisco. That's sort of seen as the pedigree. The companies that come out of that all get funded millions, and many of them go on to be very successful. I think Airbnb is an example of that. Now, when you're raising a seed round of investment at that seed stage, there's typically 2 types of investment that you're going to raise. One is your plain and simple equity investment. That's when you buy shares in my company. So either I sell you some of my shares, but more common, I will create new shares, sell them to you, set a new valuation and a new share price on the company for your investment. That way I get all the money into the company and I can use it to improve the product or hire people or whatever I need to use or spend that money on. The second most common form of investment in the early stage is a thing called a convertible note or a convertible loan. In the US, they have a safe note, which was created by Y Combinator, the accelerator. What it simply is when you're trying to negotiate valuation and a seed stage company, it's very difficult because how do you value the company at that stage? For the most part, they've only been going for maybe 6 months, a year. and they might not have that much to show for it. So it's quite hard for the investor to say the company's only worth 100,000, so I'll give you 50,000, therefore I get half of it, or a third of it. But the same way the founder can't say the company's worth 100 billion, right? Because, I mean, who's right? You have to meet in the middle. So instead of agreeing on a valuation, which means that there's a share price agreed, you do a convertible note, which is basically cash today, stock tomorrow. What you do is you give me that 100,000 investment, like the equity investment, but I don't give you the equity today. What we do is I get that 100,000, I use it on everything that I want to use it on, I prove, grow, I get traction, I develop, and then when I'm going to raise my next round of funding, you know, at the late seed, early Series A round of funding level with venture capitalists, maybe my valuation is really easy to define. Then you, as the investor in my company, a year ago, in that seed round, you will convert the cash into shares in the company with a discount. So I'll make a whole nother video on the convertible loan for you. It can be very complex, but once you understand it, it actually makes total sense. So that's the two most common forms of seed stage investments today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, LUNICORN on YouTube, where we bring you 4 episodes every single week. On Mondays, it's Startup Stuff Explained. Wednesdays, it's Behind the Startup Scenes of Barcelona, Season 1 right now. On Fridays, we do startup interviews, also from behind the startup scenes of Barcelona. And on Sundays, we have a scale-up show called Scale Busters, where I interview some of the really exciting, unorthodox scaling methods that we found in the startup market today. I'll see you in the next video.